Peace, family. Peace, 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 peace. Dr. Show. Hello. We're back again, doing it the way that we do. Oh, you know what? I actually don't need this. Let me put that down. So, welcome back. I'm glad to be back. I wanted to take a moment to speak to the last video that I posted about your purpose, right? I got a lot of feedback about that. I got a lot of feedback where people were saying, this is right on time. I've been thinking about this. I've been nervous. I've been scared, but I just need to go for it. And I'm like, yes, just go for it. Now, I also recognize that sometimes it can be difficult for us to just go for it because we don't yet know where we're going, right? So, yes, some people have been receiving the nudges, the visions, the confirmations about what their purpose is, where they're going, and what to do next. However, for other people, that message may not be clear. So, I wanted to speak to how do you actually figure out what your purpose is? How do you know that the thing that you're thinking about, the thing that you have been doing, the thing that you're getting ready to do is actually your purpose? It is your calling. And so I think one of the ways that we can figure out what is our next step and where we're going is to look at our lives as the blueprint. It's as simple as that. Your life is the blueprint. So think about the different experiences that you have had over the years, the different people that you have come in contact with over the years. Think about your childhood. All of the experiences, people that we've interfaced with, opportunities that we have maybe had and we've taken, opportunities that we have had and we have passed on. Find the pattern in that. And when you find the pattern, you have found the blueprint. Think about maybe when you were younger, and maybe you have to ask some people around you, people who have known you from when you were young, from when you first came into this world. Ask them, what types of things was I interested in? What did I gravitate to? Not what you gave me, right? Not what you conditioned me to be attentive to and to focus my energy on, but what did I naturally gravitate to? For me, I naturally gravitated to school, learning, and also people, right? I had a lot of people, specifically adults, around me. I remember always being surrounded by adults. Now, I'm an oldest child, and I'm also the only child for one of my parents, for my father. And in growing up as the eldest child, there's not a lot of kids around because they just have not, they haven't been created yet, right? If you have siblings, you know what I'm saying. Your siblings have not yet been created as the eldest child. And so for you, it might be a case where you're surrounded by people who are adults. This could be caretakers, parents, aunties, uncles, grandparents, neighbors, babysitters, even, right? As the oldest child, I'm not being babysit by an older sibling. Whereas for my younger siblings, I babysat them, right? So I was their babysitter. So they were exposed to, yes, an older person, but I was still a child. I was still in my youth. And so that dynamic looks different depending on your birth order. So that could also be something else to look at. When were you born amongst your siblings, right? Are you the oldest child? And what does that mean? And what has that meant for you in your journey? Are you the middle child? And what has that meant for your journey? Are you the youngest? And again, what has that meant for you and your journey? with me growing up around a lot of adults, I was also exposed to adult problems. I was exposed to people who were adults living their lives and going through the struggles that I now recognize. And I also remember being asked very specific questions. I remember being asked for advice when I was like young, like just listening, right? And taking it in and being able to make sense of what the person is saying. And I would provide feedback. Now, sometimes my feedback would literally just be like a facial expression, a sound, kind of nudging the person to listen, you gotta figure that out on your own. I can't help you. I don't. I don't know. That's above me. I listen, I'm here. And then other times I would offer these like tokens of wisdom. I remember saying to my grandma very clearly that nothing happens by accident. Everything is on purpose. I remember that vividly. And I couldn't have been more than 4 or 5. 4 or 5. And I also remember counseling my uncles when I was older. I mean, when I was younger, right? They would talk to me about different experiences that they had with women, their struggles even with finding women. And I remember just listening and asking questions too. And so for me, this position that I'm in now, where I am a therapist, I work as a therapist. I am one of those peoples within my friend group that people come to, they lean on, they ask for advice. Within other relationships in my life, I often take the observer stance. And then when prompted, I offer my insights. And I have a homegirl. I've actually done I did a couple of projects with her. We did a video, Chanel. And she tells me all the time, like, girl, you be saying some stuff that stick. You say some stuff that sticks with me. Like it may hurt in the moment. I may be like, ooh, sting, but it sticks. And that's something that has been with me for as long as I can remember. So, what are the things that have been with you? What are the gifts, the skills, the talents that have been with you from as long as you can remember? What are some of the things that your heart naturally gravitates to? And maybe that's your blueprint. I mentioned sibling order. So, looking at within your family, the roles that you played, right? Let's say there's even a person who's been adopted, right? What does it mean to have been removed or separated from your family of origin and then placed in another family? What types of skills and abilities did you have to learn in order to survive in those environments, to thrive, to adapt? That can give you insight on what your purpose is, what you are called to be doing. The other thing I want to mention and kind of bring as part of my own experience is, again, part of the family piece and like a family pattern piece. So I'm the oldest girl of 5 total boys. I include my brothers that I received from my stepfather. And I also include the brothers that came from the same womb that I came from, right? All of them, all of y'all, 5 of y'all, right? 5 brothers. I don't have any sisters biologically from either of my parents. from any of my step parents. I don't have any sisters. Okay. Within my parents' sibling lineup, my mom has two brothers, and my dad is one of, oh gosh, is it seven? Is it six or seven? Hold on. Yeah. My dad, Uncle E, Uncle Bubby, there's six, right? Six that were brought into this world. And out of those six, there's two sisters. So I have two aunts. I have two aunts from both my mother and my father. Two aunts, three uncles from my dad, and then my dad. So that's four men, four boys that they had. From my mom, that's one mom, so that's three women, and then two uncles. That's six, right? So three and six. I have twice as many uncles and male figures from both of my parents' siblings than I do from the women. And so, what does that mean? Probability says that I'm more likely to learn more from the men because of the amount of men that are around me than from the women. My brothers, I told you I have five. So, generation before me, I'm being influenced by six different men in different ways. My father amongst those six. And then my brothers, five, who, again, I'm the oldest. So I help to cultivate and grow them. What does that tell you? That tells you that I have interfaced with a lot of male energies in my lifetime. What does that also mean? That means that I may be more versed in building relationships with men than women. And it's true. As I grew up, as I have journeyed through my life, I have had more male friends, more male affiliates than I have had female friends. I've had stronger connections and bonds with female friends, right? Let me highlight that. My sisters and my girls are my girls. Boom, that's true. And I have also just had much more relationships with men. That's romantic, that's platonic, that's in between a little bit of both, whatever. That's mentorship, that's guidance from different ways. Either I'm mentoring them or I am a mentee of theirs. I've just had more of that. And so for me, that means that I have a different, for myself, I consider it a unique perspective of the male experience. Because again, these are the uncles and the people that would open up to me. I would get to know their inner story. I would get to know their internal world. And I actually talk about this in one of my blog posts. If you haven't checked it out, it's on mbscomplete.com. And I wrote a letter to all the men that I have ever interfaced with in this experience, in this current lifetime. A letter to the masculine. And I talk about how I didn't know you, I didn't know them until I knew them, until I could see them fully. And I began to see men fully from a very young age. I got an opportunity to get to know the tender sides of men, the vulnerable sides of men. And also, I've had my experiences with men who were afraid to show their vulnerable sides. And that came out in different ways. It came out in power struggles that I encountered with them. It came out in situations where there was a desire to experience more than what I could offer. And also, from my side, it came from a desire to experience more of them that I just did not have access to, that I was not granted access to. And sometimes that left me feeling like I was missing a piece. And it wasn't a piece of me that I was missing, it was a piece of them. And so I have also taken on the sort of character of like, oh, you can't beat them, join them, right? And I internalized that. And in turn, I also portrayed myself as what I thought men portrayed themselves as womenizers, having a lot of women, um, playing them for a lack of better words. And I did that as a woman, right? I would play them, I would have this and that and this and here. And that's just what it was for me at the time. And it was actually something that I felt, again, more connected to because that was what I was mostly exposed to. Again, there are reasons why men operate in that way. And then I speak a little bit to it in that blog post that I wrote. But men, you can also speak for yourselves. I also encourage you all to like speak, be honest, and speak your truths. And like that's a big part of my work. And so from my dissertation down to a visual poem that I recently created, I'm speaking to the fact that men need to be heard. Their stories need to be shared because there are women out here, there are children out here who are missing pieces of that masculine energy, that male energy, that man, because he has been conditioned to be silent, to be quiet, to suffer in silence. And so, for me, again, a big part of my work and a big part of one of my purposes is to provide opportunities for men to express. So, all of that to get back to this, I feel that is part of my calling because of what I was exposed to, because of the fact that I had more contact with men. I now feel more. I now feel more called to offer men the opportunity to speak and to also, as a woman, be an advocate for them to be heard. I don't know how many times, countless times, this sort of concept of, oh, men ain't this, men ain't that, men don't have this, like the constant man bashing. I don't resonate with it. I don't agree with it. And it's also not my experience. Not to say that some people's experience is not valid because they have interacted with men who have caused harm to them. And there's also the piece for me where it's like, yeah, and that's also not the end of the story, nor is it the beginning. And what's the beginning, middle, and the end that we can give voice to? And so part of the work that I do is supporting the divine masculine in expressing themselves and being open, in collaborating with the divine feminine, with our divine women. Now, of course, we both have masculine and feminine energies, right? This is not it's not really it's a gender thing, but it's not an exclusively gender thing, right? Men have feminine and masculine aspects, women have feminine and masculine aspects. What comes out and how we express it speaks a lot to our upbringing, where we feel safe, and also just our expressions that we were either conditioned to embody or naturally, biologically embody because of the different elements that make up male and female. So, all of that to say, I took my experiences with being exposed to different types of men throughout all walks of life, all different types of relationship, and I have now turned that into a purpose where I am speaking to some of the pain that men have experienced, encouraging them to talk about it, and then also educating my sisters in how to work with them, how to live with them, how to collaborate with them, how to be empowered in those divine relationships. Another piece that we can look at is, where have you also been shut out? That's another part of it. I remember being the type of person, I was not into clubs. I didn't get into sports until later on in high school, and I enjoyed it. But even with that, wow, now I'm remembering. I did track, and I was pretty high. I was fast, 100 meter, 200, whatever. 400, please. Not really volunteering for that, but I could do it. But give me them sprints, I'm on it. And then I got really bad, and it has never been diagnosed officially, but I got really bad shin splints, I think. Whatever it was, I had this huge growth in my leg that it was so painful whenever I ran. Like, the pain was excruciating, like to the point where I quit. I didn't continue in that field, right? And so that was one place I can say now that I was shut out of. I was not positioned to continue with that skill, with that path of sports. Same thing with groups and clubs. I was not positioned to be a part of those types of clubs. I never did any types of Girl Scouts. The closest thing that I could say I came to with clubs was dance. But that's another thing, right? Like with dance, I started dance. I loved it. I still love dance to this day. And for reasons that were beyond me, I was not able to continue. I wasn't able to continue. And so, boom, that's another place that I have been shut out of. So, yes, it may be a passion and interest of mine, but it's not my purpose, right? You kind of seeing the pattern here. We can want something, we can love something, we can be drawn to something, experience it, and then along the way, find that it's not set up really for us to see it to its fullest. It's not. Right. Another thing was, even in college, I started out doing pre-med. Baby, I knew I was going to be a doctor, a medical doctor, from when I was like young. I'm like, I want to be a surgeon. I'm good with my hands. I like picking stuff out. I like looking, all of that, right? I'm very inquisitive. I'm detail oriented when it comes to the skin. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this doctor thing, medical doctor thing. I get to I get to chemistry. Like, baby, chem two. Shout out to all of you guys who continued. Chem two took me out. It took it took me out the game. It took me out the game, y'all. I was done. I said, oh, okay, I'm going to change. No pre-med. This is not for me, baby. It's not. But I can take my talents elsewhere. Okay. I could take my talents elsewhere, right? I could go down to South Beach and do something else, right? So that's where I ended up with psychology. Um, and I even was like, okay, maybe I can do psychiatry. And I was like, but I don't really agree with modern day medicine and using that as the only tool, right? So I'm like, you know what? Psychology it is. And I just went full force with that. But again, that was a door that was closed. As I was walking on this path, that was a door that was closed. So think about the paths and the doors that have been closed. Yes, sometimes if a door is closed, it doesn't mean that you stop knocking, but you also got to use discernment. Discernment says, I see why and what this is, and so I'm going to choose intentionally. I'm going to choose intentionally. My heart wasn't in it. And you can use things like how you feel when you do something as a meter to say, okay, this is an alignment. Or you can say, this is not an alignment. If you're pushing on that door and the push doesn't feel aligned, it's not it. I'll give you another example, one more example. When I was applying for my internships, I kept hearing from everybody, 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 you know who you are if you know who you are. And if you don't, then, whatever. Don't apply there. You don't have experience here. You can't get in there. You can't do this. Open up your search, widen your search. Do this, do this, do this, do this, do this. Doors closing. People telling me to redirect my path. People telling me to choose something different, have my sights set on somewhere else. And I'm like, nah, no, no. I'm going to keep knocking on that door because guess what? That's for me. And I know that that's for me. And that's what I did. And so this is not to say that if the door closes, you don't keep moving forward. It's just knowing where and when and what the door closure actually means. I said one more example. I'm going to get this very last one because it just came back to me. I was going to mention it before. I tried to join a sorority at one point. Again, not really a club person, and I wanted to join. And opportunity after opportunity, I tried to take it and it didn't work out. And so for me, I'm like, yo, maybe this is just not in me to be connected to clubs and groups in this way, right? Because mind you, I hadn't had the experience before, or rather, I've had the experience before where I wanted to be a part of a group or a club and it didn't work. I've never been a part of like those big cliques. Like, if anything, I was a transplant into a clique that was already there. And because I moved around a lot, I was in and then I was out. In and then I was out. And then I, again, still had my core people that travel with me no matter where I went. But that wasn't a big group of people. Now it's a solid group of people because I have kept close connections with everybody or every one person or two people that I really connected with during that season of my life. But to have one cohesive group of like 5 or 6 girlfriends that all grew up, like that all went to the same school, we all kept in contact, I've never been a part of that. And that's just not my path. Not my path. And so we also got to be okay with looking at our blueprint, the one that has been laid out for us, and accepting it as ours and not trying to look at somebody else's blueprint and say, oh, but I want that one. Yeah, but that one's not for you. That's not yours. And the reason why you're not able to manifest what is on this blueprint is because you're looking at somebody else's. So also maybe it's a refocusing. If you have the blueprint, if you know what your purpose is, but you're still looking and you're listening to what everybody else has, and you're like, oh, but I want that too. Oh, but what about this? Oh, what about that? You're losing sight. Okay. So that's all I got for you today. Your blueprint is your life. Your life is your blueprint. Look at your patterns. Look at the situations, the environments that you have been placed in. Use that to speak to why, what, and where you're going. Why you're going to places where you're going, what you're going to be doing in those places, and where those places are. The how, notice I didn't say the how. The how is that ain't for you to know. It's not for you to know, not exactly. I know. This is why a lot of people have a problem moving and doing, because they're like, well, how? How am I going to get there? I don't know. And neither do you. And you're not going to know unless you just go. So just go. Just do it. Follow the blueprint. Look at the blueprint. Create the blueprint. Make it yours. Own it. Accept it. Be authentic. And do what you got to do. That's it. I love y'all.